Yet we are on the hadith number 4. So they ask, قالوا إن ذلك لكائن يا رسول الله. Ya Rasulullah, is it possible that it may happen? قال نعم, yes, of course it's going to happen. وأشد منه سيكون. And something even worse than that is going to happen. So what is that thing which is worse than these three conditions? كيف أنتم إذا لم تأمروا بالمعروف وتنهوا عن المنكر? How you are going to be, O Muslims, when you will not make أمر معروف النهي عن المنكر. الأمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر. You know, I remember the very first book that I studied in the Islamic, you can say, the general matters. It was in our country. We call the book as 40 fara'id. Okay, 40 fara'id. So it is one of the very earliest books. So as you study, for example, is it Qaida Amma? How do they call the book? Qaida Baghdadi? Do you know that Qaida? Al-Qaida? The book, we don't want them to make an issue about us using Al-Qaida, Al-Qaida, you know. That book you study in the Tahfiz Quran, do you know that? What do they call it? Qaida, which teaches you how to make wudu, etc. Islamic Essentials?
Ta'lim al-Haq.
Ta'lim al-Haq, yeah. So, Ta'lim al-Haq, that in our place, we do 40 fara'id. Okay, 40 fara'id. So one of the fara'id, so that will include all of the, you can say, compulsions, or the majority of the compulsions of the Muslim. Okay, so one of them is Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahi anil Munkar. So what's the Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi anil Munkar? Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi anil Munkar is when you see someone doing something wrong, and there is no any doubt that it is wrong, and there is no any disagreement that it is wrong, and you have very proper knowledge that it is wrong, then you advise him to not to do it. So according to that, if you will see someone eating a crabs, do you have to stop him? We say no, because it is in Maliki and Shafi'i Madhahib, it is halal. So even though if you see someone Hanafi eating a crab, you don't have a right to stop him. Because maybe in this specific matter, he did ask some scholar, and that scholar was Maliki. We say fine, no problem. Okay? Or another case, you saw someone maybe has golden teeth. Okay, using a golden teeth. So we say in Hanafi madhab is not permissible, but it's not agreed upon issue that there is not any exemptions. It could be that this person has heart condition, you know. Do you know, inshallah, when you will, any of you will join to our the herbal medicine, I'm going to teach some remedy which is to strengthen of the heart, and we call that remedy as the dawa ul muluk, the remedy of the kings, because it's price. So we use big portion of a gold in that. We just crush it and just we use it with honey and other ingredients. Why? Because gold is one of the key, I would say, ingredients to strengthen the heart. Okay, as well as people, do you know the warriors? They used to use that gold on that way. Why? Because the people who do not have a courage, so they are struggling from the weakness of the heart. So the physical of the weakness of the heart will cause the psychological weakness of the heart also. Means the person is going to be covered. Okay, so anyway, so maybe the person who has that golden teeth, maybe it's because one of the hakims, instead of preparing the remedy, because he was unable to prepare because it's very complicated, so maybe he gave him that advice. Because when you will use the teeth, so each time when you eat small portion of the gold will carry on feeding your heart. So maybe the person is doing the golden teeth because of that. So there is some there is good excuse, interpretation. But if you see someone drinking wine, okay, so there is no any good interpretation. Okay, so then you should advise him. But then how to advise? We say all of the time, you have to keep in your mind that he's not your enemy. But the main goal is to make him to stop doing it. So if you will be very harsh, so are you going to make him to stop doing that, or are you encouraging him to do even more? Psychologically, human being is very strange. So let's suppose that I saw you doing something. So if I would challenge you, if I would say, don't do it, that type of bad word, then you will do it even more. Do you know? Oh, you pagal, this, that, malai, So the person, it is just psychological thing, Most of us, we do have that thing, But if you will give gentle advice, it makes the person to be ashamed of himself, Okay? So you should keep in your mind that you are not fighting against him, but you are willing him to stop doing it. So what's the way of doing it? That goal, performing that goal. So we say to give him gentle advice, but not to challenge him, not to insult him. Okay? I know someone from Ahlul Bayt actually. Unfortunately, it happened to that lady. And she's just brilliant lady. As a normally Ahlul Bayt are. She has very good hair. But she had a problem of putting on a scarf for a very long time. And after the age of 60, she did start putting the hijab. But then, once basically she came and we were just talking. She's a scholar also. For some reason, Ahlul Bayt, they're natural scholars. So then basically we were just chatting, and somehow she did explain that the main reason was when she was a kid, young girl, something was 5 years old, she was just outside with very short clothes. And someone with a big beard came and from her behind slapped, here, saying, go and put on scarves, So that made her to have problem with the scarf, Do you understand what I mean? So, our enemy is not this individual, but our enemy is the deed that he is doing. So you have to hate the deed, but not the person. And how to do it? So, give very gentle advice to the person, so make him to hate what he's doing also, but not make him to hate you, so he will carry on, he will do even more, Okay, so that is psychological. That is how a person works psychologically. Okay. Imam Shafi'i radiallahu anhu says, إذا نصحت أخاك جهارا فقد فضحت. Means, if you give advice to your brother publicly, you did cause a scandal. So you didn't give him advice, but you did blame. Okay, for example, you saw some of your friends maybe speaking to some young lady and maybe smiling, doing something strange. Then in front of everyone, you will say, to speak to that young lady is not good, So right now you didn't give him advice. So you made him to feel ashamed in front of the people. It's not permissible to do so. Why? Because you did backbite him. You did disclose his sin in front of the people. So you have two options. Either do it privately so no one hears you, no one sees you, or make it as something that no one understands that you mean him. Okay, so you may just say, there is some hadith actually, but it should be on the way that no one understands that you are speaking to someone. But everyone should understand that you are actually maybe translating some hadith. Okay, for example, you should mention that once Rasulullah was in I'tikaf, and then Sayyida Maria Qibtiyya came to visit Rasulullah, and they were just on the gate of the Masjid al-Nabawi. And then two of the Ansari Sahabas, they were just walking, and when they saw Rasulullah speaking to some lady, they started walking very fast. Sahabi Rasulullah said, Ala rislikum, oh young people, come down. This is your mother Maria Qibtiyya. Means I'm not talking to some stranger lady, but she is Maria Qibtiyya, my wife. Then they said, Ya Rasulullah, subhanallah, do you think that we think that about you? Rasulullah said, I don't think so, but shaitan runs in the veins of a human being. So I didn't want the shaitan to play with your mind. So thinking bad about prophets will lead you to kufr. So Rasulullah said, I didn't want that only. So by narrating this hadith, you did teach the people, in the same time, you clarified some brilliant point to the person that it wasn't good what you did. But no one understood that you mean him. Okay. I used to work, before I came to the UK, I used to work in Dubai. I used to be a teacher there also. You know, I've been sealed on my back that I'm a teacher. So wherever I go, I'm a teacher. Anyway, so there was a masjid and they were praying Taraweeh. So Imam was a bit, old people, you know, old people, any voice will make them to be angry, you know. So he was praying as an Imam. And then some of the brothers, Jamaatis, he forgot to switch off his mobile phone. And it's just young man, about maybe 30 years old man. And well, young people, we forget often, you know. Okay, so during the salat, his bell started ringing, you know, whatever. Imam, he was praying during the salat, he turned back, said, what's the dog who didn't switch off his mobile phone? That Jamaati never came back to the masjid. Okay. Yeah, so it is, you have to be very highly talented to give advice to the people. So advising the people doesn't mean insulting them or making takfir of them or saying, oh, Wahhabi, Tumara Baba Wahhabi te, tum also Wahhabi, you know. So it's not that. That's not advice. That is insult. Allah and His Messenger, they did forbid us to insult each other. وَلَا تَنَابَزُوا بِالْأَلْقَابِ. Do not call each other by insultive words. You know, oh, that Wahhabi, oh, that kind. That is tanabuz bil alqab, by insulting, by using bad words about each other. You know, so that's not permissible. But advice, it should be something as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave permission to make it in 3 ways. Okay. What He said, ادعو إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة وجادلهم بالتي هي أحسن. صدق الله العظيم. Means call the people to the path of God by only one of these 3 ways. Why? Because there is no any other way of calling the people to the path of God except these 3 ways. What are these ways? ادعو إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة, by the wisdom. Okay, for example, you may mention very wise story. Okay, it's the most effective way is the word of the wisdom, you know, the word of the wisdom. Okay, so do you remember Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam giving an example of the dead animal lifting and saying, anyone willing to buy this dead animal for 1 penny? Said, Ya Rasulullah, no one likes to take it even for free, you know. So Rasulullah said, that is the value, or even less than that, that's the value of the dunya in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That was so effective, it did hit the Sahaba so deeply that they didn't need anything more. So whole lecture is only 2 words of a wisdom. Okay, so ادعو إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة, as well as al-maw'izatu al-hasana, the beautiful advice. Al-maw'iza, beautiful nasiha. Okay, so it's not that, oh, you know, I saw some of you speaking to some lady, I will not say who is he, you know, I will not show him. Okay, but he doesn't know that he is Wahhabi. It's not that. That's not the way of the Rasulullah. So al-maw'izatul hasana is very beautiful, advisable word, and normally after the maw'izah hasana, person will get ashamed of himself. Okay, yeah. وَجَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ, and then have a discussion with them, but بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ, on the best way. So it's not insulting, it's not shouting, Okay, do you remember how Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam did have a discussion with Namrud? Okay, so Namrud said, I am God. Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam said, I worship the true God. Namrud said, what's the God? So he said, God is the one who gives life and takes life. Namrud said, I can't do it. He called two of his servants and he killed one of them, and here it is the second. He said, I took a life of one of them and I gave a life to the second. He was wrong. So Ibrahim ﷺ didn't go in depth to the argument, because when we say something, it's very difficult for us to take it back. But Ibrahim ﷺ gave different, easier, understandable proof. Said, my God that I worship brings sun from the east, so bring it from the west. That is al-Mu'idatul Hasan. So after that, Ibrahim ﷺ didn't do this, didn't do this, okay, didn't say Wahhabi, didn't say Kafir, but argument stopped, and then Namrud has been shot up. Okay, so that is al-Mu'idatul Hasan. Al-Mu'idatul Hasan. So, O Muslims, how are you going to find yourselves when you will not do Amr Ma'ruf and Nahi Anil Munkar no more? I remember when I used to be a kid, so if some young man would be smoking, some elderly person, if he would be passing from the same street, he would just hide his cigarettes. Okay, but now our generation, they do such weird things, such bad things, okay, and no one stops them. Okay, and even people are afraid of stopping them. So at least they will get insulted. So no one stops anyone from doing bad. Okay, no one stops anyone from doing bad. So then قالوا, they said, وَكَانٌ ذَلِكَ, they said, Ya Rasulullah, is it possible that it may happen that we'll stop doing these two things, which is two farad of our Islam? They said, وَأَشَدُّ مِنْهُ سَيَكُونَ, and even something more is going to happen. So what is that thing which is more than that? كيف أنتم إذا رأيتم المعروف منكرا ورأيتم المنكر معروفا. So how do you find yourselves, or Muslims, when you recognize the good to be bad, and you will think bad of being good? So something which is bad, but you think that it is good, and something which is good, you think that it is bad. So means the heart, because what is the thing which makes us to know, to distinguish between good and bad? It's our heart, am I right? As you know, we have two brains. One is animalistic brain and the second is angelic brain, am I right? So the animalistic brain, all of the animals do have that. So that brain makes you to survive from the death. So by using that animalistic brain, lions fight with each other and use tactic to win, to attack from different ways. Okay, so the same brain we use to fight, to kill, or to survive, But there is another, or for example, let's say, if you will be given £1 or £20, which one of them you will accept? 20. Because our animalistic brain says that that is better, more expensive, more valuable. Okay, so on the same way, our angelic brain will be functioning also. But the duty of our angelic brain is to distinguish between good and bad. Okay, for example, if I will mention in front of you adultery, straight away you will say it's bad. But there are people who find it fine, Why? Because the angelic brain with the people who will say it is bad is still alive, functioning. But those who do not find it bad, okay, or even they may not find incest as something bad, we say their angelic brain is no more functioning. So when angelic brain is not functioning, you do not distinguish between halal and haram and bad and good, because it is sealed, it is dead. Brain is dead. Okay? So for example, can you imagine one thing? If the Naat singers with the music in the free mixed audience, if it would happen in the time of the Sahaba, straight away they would say it is bad. Am I right? But now it's happening and everyone says, oh, mashallah, it is good. Am I right? Because angelic brain is sealed or it's dead, and we see bad and we think that it is good, as well as we see good and we think that it is bad.